Have you ever paused to wonder why David said, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want"? These words hold a power that goes far beyond their poetic beauty. This isn't just a comforting verse for troubled times. It's a divine declaration that can revolutionize your life. Hidden within the familiar lines of Psalm 23 are treasures of wisdom, revelation, and practical truths that can bring peace to your heart, clarity to your path, and strength to your spirit. Psalm 23 isn't merely a psalm of comfort, it's a psalm of empowerment. It's a blueprint for living a life of trust, provision, and protection under the loving care of a God who knows your every need. These words offer more than solace. They invite you into an intimate relationship with the Creator, where you can walk in complete confidence, knowing that you are never alone and never without help. Today, we're going to dive deep into this psalm, verse by verse, unlocking its profound truths and uncovering the secrets that can transform your spiritual journey forever. Are you ready to discover how Psalm 23 can lead you to a life of peace, power, and purpose? Let's begin. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. David begins with a bold declaration of faith. By calling God his shepherd, he paints a picture of intimate care and provision. A shepherd doesn't merely oversee the sheep, he knows them individually, guards them from harm, and ensures they lack nothing essential. David's words remind us that God isn't distant or impersonal. He is actively involved in our lives, guiding us every step of the way. This opening line challenges us to reflect on who or what we rely on for our security and fulfillment. Many people look to jobs, relationships, or achievements to meet their needs, but David confidently declares that the Lord alone is sufficient. When you recognize God as your shepherd, you step into a place of trust and peace, knowing that He is your ultimate provider. Choosing to trust in God as your shepherd means surrendering control and embracing His care. Just as sheep are entirely dependent on their shepherd, we are called to depend on God for guidance, protection, and provision. It's not a sign of weakness, it's an acknowledgement of His strength. With the Lord as your shepherd, you can rest assured that you will lack nothing essential for your journey. I shall not want is a powerful declaration of contentment and trust. These words reflect a soul that has found complete satisfaction in God's provision. In a world driven by the relentless pursuit of more money, more recognition, more possessions, David's statement stands as a countercultural truth. True contentment doesn't come from external circumstances, but from an inner assurance that God is enough. When you say, "I shall not want," you are declaring that God's provision is perfect. It's not about having everything you desire. It's about trusting that God knows what you need and will provide it in His perfect timing. This truth liberates you from anxiety and the fear of scarcity. Instead of striving to meet your own needs, you can rest in the knowledge that your shepherd has already made every provision for you. Living in this state of divine contentment doesn't mean you'll never face challenges or moments of uncertainty. Rather, it means that even in those moments, you can remain confident that God is working all things for your good. Trusting in His sufficiency allows you to live with a sense of peace and gratitude, no matter what life brings. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. This verse speaks of rest, safety, and provision. Sheep only lie down when they feel completely secure. For David to say that God leads him to green pastures is a declaration of God's ability to provide not only sustenance, but also peace. These pastures represent a place of abundance and restoration, where you can pause from life's busyness and rest in His presence. In today's fast-paced world, finding rest can feel almost impossible. We live in a culture that glorifies productivity and busyness, leaving little room for stillness. Yet, God invites you to step away from the noise and find rest in Him. The green pastures He provides are not just physical places, they are moments of spiritual renewal, where your soul is refreshed and your burdens are lifted. To lie down means to stop striving and trust fully in God's care. It's an act of surrender, acknowledging that He is in control. As you rest in His provision, you discover that His pastures are always sufficient. They may not look the way you expect, but they always meet your deepest needs. Resting in His green pastures is a reminder of His faithful love and care. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Still waters symbolize peace, restoration, and refreshment. They are a stark contrast to the chaotic currents of life that often threaten to overwhelm us. David paints a picture of a God who doesn't drive us to exhaustion, but lovingly leads us to places of calm where our souls can be restored. The still waters represent more than physical rest. They point to the deep, spiritual renewal that only God can provide. Life's demands can leave us drained, but when we follow God's leading, we find ourselves refreshed and revitalized. He knows exactly when and how to bring us to these moments of peace. This verse is also a reminder that God is gentle in His guidance. He doesn't push or force you, He leads you with kindness. When you allow Him to guide you, He takes you to the places your heart and soul truly need. These still waters remind us that in God's presence, there is a peace that surpasses all understanding. It's an invitation to slow down, listen to His voice, and drink deeply from the well of His love and grace. He restoreth my soul. These words speak to God's incredible ability to renew and revitalize the innermost parts of your being. Life can take a toll on your soul, leaving you weary, broken, or burdened by the weight of challenges, regrets, and disappointments. But God is a shepherd who doesn't leave you in a depleted state. He restores, refreshes, and breathes new life into your spirit. Restoration is not merely about returning to your former condition. It's about becoming whole and complete in Him. God's restoration goes beyond surface level fixes. It penetrates the deepest wounds of your heart and heals them with His love. Whether you are facing emotional pain, spiritual dryness, or physical exhaustion, God's promise is to renew you fully. When David says, "He restoreth my soul," he acknowledges that restoration is an ongoing process. Each day brings new struggles, but each day also brings new opportunities to be filled with God's grace and strength. As you place your trust in Him, He transforms the broken pieces of your life into something beautiful. In His hands, restoration is not just a possibility, it is a promise. Let Him restore you today. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. God's guidance is perfect, and He leads His children along paths that are right and true. These paths are not always the easiest or the most popular, but they are the ones that align with His will and bring honor to His name. The paths of righteousness refer to a life lived in alignment with God's character and purposes. Walking these paths means making choices that reflect His love, justice, and holiness. It's about living in a way that glorifies Him and demonstrates His goodness to the world around you. Importantly, God doesn't leave you to navigate these paths on your own. He leads you every step of the way, offering His word as a lamp to your feet and His Spirit as your guide. When you feel uncertain or tempted to stray, His gentle voice calls you back to the right path. David reminds us that this guidance is for His name's sake. God's faithfulness in leading you reflects His unchanging character. As you follow Him, you not only grow closer to Him, but you also become a living testimony of His goodness and grace to others. Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me. This verse addresses one of life's most challenging realities, walking through the valleys. These valleys represent dark and difficult seasons, times of loss, uncertainty, or overwhelming fear. Yet David's confidence shines through. Even in the shadow of death, he declares he will not fear. Why? Because God is with him. The valley is not a destination, it's a passage. David acknowledges that we will face hardships, but he also reminds us that God doesn't leave us to face them alone. His presence is a constant source of comfort and strength. The shadow of death may loom large, but it is powerless in the face of God's light. Fear loses its grip when you remember who walks beside you. God's presence doesn't remove the valley, but it transforms how you experience it. Instead of despair, you can find hope. Instead of fear, you can find courage. The shepherd's promise is to guide you through every valley, ensuring that no matter how dark it seems, you are never alone and never without his protection. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. The imagery of the rod and staff provides a beautiful picture of God's dual role as protector and guide. In the hands of a shepherd, the rod was a tool of defense, used to ward off predators and protect the sheep. The staff, with its hooked end, was used to gently guide sheep back to safety when they wandered off course. For David, these tools symbolized God's care and oversight. The rod represents God's protection against the enemy's attacks, while the staff represents his loving guidance. Together, they are a source of comfort and security, reminding us that God is both our defender and our guide. In your life, the rod and staff might look like God's discipline, his word, or the leading of his Holy Spirit. Sometimes, his rod corrects you when you stray, keeping you from danger. Other times, his staff gently pulls you back into his will. Both are expressions of his love. The comfort lies in knowing that God's tools are always used for your good. He doesn't allow harm to come near you, and he doesn't let you wander too far. With his rod and staff, you are safe in his care. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. This verse is a stunning display of God's provision and favor. Imagine a banquet table set for you not in a place of peace and safety, but right in the midst of your enemies. This imagery speaks to God's ability to bless you and provide for you even when you are surrounded by adversity. The table symbolizes abundance, celebration, and fellowship. It reminds us that God's blessings are not dependent on your circumstances. Even when you face opposition, God lavishes his goodness upon you. Your enemies may try to intimidate or harm you, but they are powerless to stop God's plans for your life. This verse also reflects God's vindication. By preparing the table in the presence of your enemies, he demonstrates his faithfulness and his commitment to you. It's as if he's saying to your enemies, "This is my child, and I take care of them." As you sit at his table, you are reminded of his sovereignty and love. No matter who or what comes against you, God's provision is sure. He prepares a place of blessing for you, even in the most unlikely of circumstances. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. In ancient times, anointing with oil symbolized favor, blessing, and consecration. Shepherds also used oil as a practical tool to protect their sheep from parasites and wounds. When David says, "Thou anointest my head with oil," he acknowledges God's personal care, protection, and abundant blessings over his life. The anointing represents being set apart for God's purposes. It's a mark of his favor and a reminder that you are chosen, loved, and cared for. The imagery of the overflowing cup reinforces this truth. God doesn't merely meet your needs, he exceeds them. His blessings are abundant, overflowing into every area of your life. This verse invites you to live with a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. Even in seasons of difficulty, God's anointing reminds you that his provision and favor are still at work. It's not just about material blessings, but also about spiritual abundance, peace, joy, love, and grace that overflow into your relationships and circumstances. As you embrace this truth, you can walk confidently, knowing that you are anointed by God. His blessings will continually flow into your life, enabling you to be a blessing to others. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. This verse captures the relentless pursuit of God's love. The word follow is better understood as pursue, indicating that God's goodness and mercy actively chase after you throughout your life. Goodness represents God's provision, favor, and blessings, while mercy signifies his forgiveness, compassion, and grace. Together, they form a picture of God's unwavering commitment to your well-being. No matter where you go or what you face, His goodness and mercy are always with you, ensuring that you are never outside the reach of His love. This pursuit isn't conditional. It doesn't depend on your perfection or worthiness. It is a reflection of God's character and His covenant with you. His goodness supplies your every need, and His mercy covers your every failure. Living with the assurance of God's goodness and mercy changes how you view life. Instead of fear or uncertainty about the future, you can rest in the knowledge that His love surrounds you. Every step you take is covered by His care. No matter what lies ahead, His goodness and mercy will accompany you, guiding you into His promises. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. David concludes Psalm 23 with a declaration of eternal security and belonging. To dwell in the house of the Lord is to remain in His presence, both now and for eternity. It's a reminder that your relationship with God isn't temporary, it's eternal. This verse also reflects a deep longing for intimacy with God. For David, the house of the Lord wasn't just a physical temple, it represented the presence of God. To dwell there meant living in constant communion with Him. It's a picture of ultimate peace, joy, and fulfillment. Eternity in God's presence isn't just a future promise, it's a present reality. Through Jesus Christ, you have access to God's presence every day. His Spirit lives within you, making your heart His dwelling place. As you cultivate this relationship, you experience the fullness of His love, guidance, and peace. The promise of forever reminds us that life's struggles are temporary, but God's presence is eternal. No matter what happens in this life, you can look forward to an unending relationship with your shepherd. This truth provides comfort, hope, and joy that sustain you in every season. Psalm 23 paints a vivid picture of God's heart as a shepherd who deeply loves and cares for His sheep. Every line reveals His character, a provider, protector, guide, and restorer. This psalm is more than poetry. It's a personal invitation to experience God's love in a transformative way. God's love is proactive and intentional. He doesn't wait for you to come to Him. He seeks you out, leading you to green pastures, still waters, and paths of righteousness. His love restores your soul and chases away fear, even in the darkest valleys. This shepherd's love is not earned, it's freely given. No matter your past mistakes or current struggles, His love remains constant. He is committed to your well-being, not out of obligation, but because it's His nature to love. Understanding the shepherd's heart transforms how you relate to God. Instead of striving to earn His approval, you can rest in His care. Instead of fearing abandonment, you can trust in His faithful presence. The love of your shepherd is unshakable, and His heart is always for you. At its core, Psalm 23 is a call to trust God completely. Each verse invites you to surrender your fears, doubts, and worries, placing your confidence in His character and promises. Trusting God as your shepherd means believing that He is capable of meeting your needs and leading you through every season of life. Trust isn't always easy, especially when life feels uncertain or overwhelming. Yet, Psalm 23 reminds us that God's care is perfect and unfailing. He knows what you need before you ask, and He provides in ways that are beyond your understanding. Learning to trust fully requires letting go of control and embracing His sovereignty. It's about choosing faith over fear and reliance on Him over self-sufficiency. As you trust in Him, you experience the peace and security that comes from knowing He is in control. This psalm is a testament to the faithfulness of a God who never fails. By meditating on its truths and applying them to your life, you can develop a trust that grows stronger with every step. Trusting the shepherd transforms how you navigate life's challenges, giving you confidence in His care and guidance. Psalm 23 is a journey from fear to faith. David acknowledges the reality of life's challenges, dark valleys, enemies, and uncertainties, but his focus remains steadfastly on God's presence and promises. This psalm shows that faith is not the absence of fear, but the choice to trust God in the midst of it. Fear often stems from uncertainty about the future or a sense of inadequacy to face life's trials. Yet, David confidently declares, "I will fear no evil," because he knows the shepherd is with him. This confidence isn't based on his own strength, but on God's unchanging character. Moving from fear to faith requires a shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on the size of the valley, focus on the presence of the shepherd who walks beside you. Instead of dwelling on potential harm, meditate on God's promises of protection, provision, and peace. Faith grows as you experience God's faithfulness. Each time He leads you through a challenge, your confidence in Him deepens. Psalm 23 reminds us that fear may come, but it doesn't have to control us. With the shepherd by your side, you can face life's uncertainties with unwavering faith. The phrase, "My cup runneth over," captures the abundant nature of God's blessings. This imagery of an overflowing cup speaks of a life that is not merely sustained, but filled to the brim with God's goodness, joy, and provision. It reflects the truth that God doesn't do the bare minimum. He lavishes His love and blessings on His children. An overflowing cup also signifies a life that spills over to bless others. When you live in the abundance of God's grace and provision, you can't help but share it with those around you. His blessings are not meant to be hoarded, but to flow through you to impact others. This abundance goes beyond material wealth. It includes spiritual riches like peace, joy, love, and hope. Even in seasons of difficulty, you can experience this overflow because it is rooted in God's presence, not your circumstances. Living with an overflowing cup means embracing gratitude and trust. Instead of focusing on what you lack, focus on the ways God has already filled your life. This mindset transforms your perspective and opens your heart to receive even more of His goodness. One of the most powerful truths of Psalm 23 is that God's provision is constant in every season of life. Whether you are resting in green pastures, walking through dark valleys, or sitting at a table in the presence of enemies, the shepherd's care never falters. This truth challenges the idea that God's blessings are only evident in times of ease or success. David's psalm shows that God is just as present in the valleys as He is on the mountaintops. His provision isn't limited to favorable circumstances. It is available in every moment, no matter how challenging. Understanding this truth allows you to trust God even when His provision looks different than expected. Sometimes He provides peace in the midst of chaos. Other times, He gives strength to endure rather than removing the trial. Regardless of the form it takes, His provision is always exactly what you need. Psalm 23 reminds us that God's care is not situational, it is unconditional. Whether you are experiencing abundance or adversity, you can trust that your shepherd is faithfully meeting your needs and leading you toward His best for your life. More than anything, Psalm 23 is an invitation to intimacy with God. Every verse reflects a personal relationship between the shepherd and his sheep, a relationship built on trust, love, and constant communion. David's words remind us that God is not a distant deity, but a present and personal shepherd who knows us by name. This intimacy is evident in the way God leads, restores, protects, and provides for His sheep. It's a relationship where you are fully known and fully loved. The shepherd doesn't just care for you as part of a flock. He cares for you individually, understanding your unique needs and guiding you with tenderness. To accept this invitation means making space in your life to connect with God. It means spending time in His Word, listening for His voice, and allowing Him to lead your decisions. Intimacy with the shepherd transforms your life because it aligns your heart with His. As you grow closer to Him, you begin to see life through His perspective. Challenges become opportunities for growth, and blessings become reminders of His love. This psalm invites you into a relationship where you can experience the fullness of His presence every day. Psalm 23 is a psalm of confidence and hope. From beginning to end, it declares the unshakable truth that God is faithful to His promises. David's words are a testament to the security that comes from knowing God as your shepherd. This confidence isn't based on circumstances, it's rooted in God's character. David doesn't deny the existence of valleys or enemies, but he faces them with assurance because he knows who God is. This same confidence is available to you when you place your trust in the shepherd. Hope flows from the promise of God's presence. No matter what lies ahead, you can walk forward with the assurance that He is with you. This hope isn't wishful thinking, it's a confident expectation based on His faithfulness. Living in this confidence and hope transforms how you approach life. You no longer need to fear the unknown or be weighed down by life's challenges. Instead, you can walk boldly, knowing that your shepherd is leading you toward His plans and purposes. Psalm 23 reminds us that with God as our shepherd, we have every reason to live with confidence and hope. Psalm 23 is more than a comforting passage. It is a life-changing declaration of God's love, care, and faithfulness. Every verse reveals a truth that can transform your relationship with God and reshape how you approach life. This psalm teaches you to trust God as your shepherd, resting in His provision, guidance, and protection. It shows you how to find peace in His presence, even in the midst of life's trials. It reminds you that His goodness and mercy are always with you, and that your ultimate home is with Him forever. The impact of Psalm 23 goes beyond personal comfort. It inspires a life of worship, gratitude, and trust. As you embrace its truths, you are empowered to live with confidence, peace, and purpose, knowing that your shepherd is always by your side. This psalm is an invitation to experience God's care in a deeper way. It's a call to step into a life marked by trust, abundance, and intimacy with Him. As you meditate on its words and apply its truths, you'll discover how Psalm 23 can truly change your life forever.